Hi, I'm Terry Murphy with Realty Times Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, and In the Men's Room with Murph, which is one of my favorite segments. And one of my very favorite men, and his wife knows it, is Cleve Gaddis. Can't wait to share Cleve with you. Cleve is a master coach, he's a speaker, and he's a trainer with Workman Success. He trains some of the most productive teams on the planet in real estate all over the country and in Canada. He learned sales the hard way, started as a vacuum cleaner salesman. Oh my goodness, that had to be some heavy training. He personally leads one of the top real estate teams in Georgia, has his own radio show, Move Atlanta Radio Show, heard weekly on AM 640, Fox News, and iHeartRadio. Welcome the incredibly amazing Cleve Gaddis.
Thank you, Terry. If I needed somebody to help me feel better about myself today, you just did it, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I know you have all blondes in your family, but you know I'm your biggest fan. He's an amazing dad of gorgeous girls, 4 of them. They all look like supermodels, which is unfair. And of course, he has a magnificent wife who still loves him after all these years. But what we love you for is something entirely different. You bring to our industry a magnificent perspective of real authenticity in communication and relevance. And you do that in ways that you use data, which is typically data, but you take us from data content to data transformation.
Right.
You came up with this magnificent, I'll say magnificent because it really is, coronavirus, I'll call it the remedy solution, and ways for us. This has been an enormous impact on the real estate industry, right, as in others. So tell us, how did you come about creating how many pieces are in that folder? I mean, there's just amazing amounts of protocols, initiatives, strategies. Tell us about how that evolved.
So I saw a quote. Just like everybody else who's listening, I've never been through a pandemic where they tell everybody to stay home, ever. So and by the way, you'll appreciate this, I was in Toronto the day that everybody started realizing, oh, you know what, this is not going to be good. And so they were like SARS came into North America, was through Toronto. And so, it was a scary experience. I'm trying to get home. Am I going to have to drive? Can I fly? And anyway, I get back to Atlanta, which is my home base. And I start thinking, okay, I'm going to have one of two choices. Look, I don't have any idea what we're supposed to do as we move forward, but I'm just as prepared as anybody else. And so if I don't find ways to help people understand how they should look at the situation, what they should be doing, provided, by the way, that we put them in a position to be safe. I don't want them not to be safe. They need to be safe. They need to be aware of their surroundings. But in the absence of leadership, people tend to believe the worst in negative situations. So it was the first quote I saw. I don't even remember where I saw it. And I decided I am not going to let people who are coached by me, who are involved in any kind of relationship with me, I'm not going to let them think the worst. I'm going to help them figure out how to make it from here to there in the best way possible. And so I just started putting stuff together, and I started reading everything I could get my hands on. I had this hole, meaning like I did not know what I was supposed to do. I did not know how I was supposed to process this. I didn't know the right thing or the wrong thing. And so I said, okay, I got to fill in the hole. And I was just consuming. I was reading and doing research and looking at data and reading articles. And Terry, some of it I agreed with. Some of it I thought was perfect in the way we needed to think, and other parts I didn't agree with. And so I just kind of left those to the side. And I put together this whole resource that talks about, in my opinion, all the things we need to do and think and be prepared for to make it out of the coronavirus crisis, and certainly to be prepared for what Verl Workman calls as the bounce.
Yes, well, as a master coach with Workman Success and as one of the major creators of the content, the most amazing thing about the content is that it is backed. It's not just, it's backed in fact, but it's also part of the observational part of what your experiential capital gives us, because you've been in business for a long time. Tell us a little bit about your background in real estate.
So as you mentioned, I was in the real estate, I was in the vacuum cleaner business for years and years. And so I learned how to cut my teeth in sales, teaching other people to sell vacuum cleaners. And that was a great way to learn how to sell for sure. But I got into real estate in 2000. I started working with my mother. So our business is a family business. She's been retired for 6 or 8 years now. And so for the last 20 years, I have just spent trying to figure out how. So I look at real estate a little bit differently, Terry, I think, that a lot of people do. A lot of people look at it as, hey, my job is to help somebody sell a home, or my job is to help somebody buy a home. And those things are really easy to do. And people can do a lot of selling and buying homes without me and without you. What they can't do is get all of the information together with which they need to make the best decisions possible. And so I've decided that real estate for me and my team is just a little bit of a different game. And we want to help people find the best homes that meet their personality and their family's needs and provide the lifestyle and give them all of that warm feeling when they drive home at night. We want to do that. But more importantly, we want to make sure they don't learn anything at closing or after they should have learned before. Because in many cases, and I hate, it sounds like I'm talking bad about my fellow real estate agents, and I'm not. They just don't all look at it as their responsibility to help Terry Murphy, for example, make the best decisions when buying or selling a home. You're an adult. You don't need me to tell you what to do, but it's not fair for you to make decisions on the largest financial purchase of your life when you've got half the information you need. And so I guess, my whole mission is to make sure you know everything you need to know before you make those oh so critical financial decisions.
One of the aspects of the coronavirus management folder that you created for the real estate membership that we support,
right,
is the mastering virtual real estate, which I think is probably what happened abruptly. What's happened here is those of us that were fairly familiar with Zoom, because it's been around for a while, now had to use it. It wasn't an option. Now, not just Zoom, but all of it, every virtual connection we can have, because phone just wasn't going to do it. Talk about what you mean by mastering the virtual real estate.
So would you mind if we backed up one step further? Because the thing that, so we have to master real estate in the virtual world, but we have to do it for a different reason than we think. So if you say to me, Cleve, you've got to switch over so you can master everything in a virtual world, what I hear is, okay, if you're going to make money, you have to switch things over to a virtual world so you can continue to make money in a virtual world. I know that's not what you meant, by the way, but that's what most people hear when you say that. And so we started looking at it, and I wanted to know how many people, for example, in the United States, every single day make a decision to either buy or sell a home. Because here's the deal. There are certain things that cause people to buy or sell homes, and I put a couple of the reasons down. Relocation, retiring, military change, job changes, becoming a homeowner, getting married, having a family, getting a divorce, upsizing, downsizing. I put economic crisis on the list, death in the family. Those are things that make people decide to buy or sell a home. And I don't know if you noticed this, Terry, but I'm just using you as an example. None of those have anything to do with you. None of those have anything to do with me as a real estate professional. So when we prospect in real estate, we allow ourselves and our agents to take too much feeling of responsibility for doing and saying the right things to make people move forward with a transaction. And what's weird is it's almost like we have these outsized egos, like we think we have something to do with whether or not somebody's going to move. And the reality is, Terry, as real estate professionals, we do not. And so we did a little research just in the Atlanta area. And we know that based on sales habits of 2019, based on the sales results of 2019, we know that 505 people a day make a decision to either buy or sell a home in the metro Atlanta statistical area every day. And we know that because there were 92,224 closings in Atlanta last year. We know there's 2 people involved in every one of those closings. So we had 184,448 transaction sides. So we know if we take that 184,000 and we divide it by 12, we know that 15,000 people a month, Terry, make a decision to move. buy or sell. 3,547 people a week make a decision to buy or sell a home, and 505 people a day. So now that we know that those 505 people are deciding to move forward buying or selling a home every day with us or without us, then if we don't call them and try to help them during this downturn, then we know it's going to be without us. They're going to move forward without us.
Well, how many agents actually go through that matriculation of understanding that so they can articulate that to their buyers and sellers?
Well, and so here's the deal. You don't even have to articulate it to the buyers and sellers. You have to articulate it to yourself. You have to fool yourself into calling, because the river of real estate continues to run regardless of whether or not you're in it. And so if I am a real estate professional and I take an entire month off of real estate in Metro Atlanta, I have lost 15,370 opportunities to help somebody buy or sell a house, because those people, their life is changing and they're moving forward with decisions to buy or sell a home regardless of coronavirus.
Regardless, and we know that life changes happen every single day, and so by having that information, again, you're taking content dump and transforming it into what's happening right now, which makes you an invaluable resource, because those people need help. And
Yep.
so when we have that kind of information and we articulate that to them, we look like the celebrity authority. We look like we should, which is being an expert, especially at being hyper local, because they may not care what's happening in LA. They really care about what's happening in Georgia.
That's exactly right. And so if you and I are working together on a team, and we know that 505 people a day in Metro Atlanta, and by the way, I've helped people all across US, all across Canada come up with these numbers. These numbers are impressive. I don't care how small your market is. There's a certain amount of people moving forward every day, every week, every month. And so if we know 505 a day are going to move forward with us or without us, then all we have to do is figure out ways to connect genuinely and deeply with the prospects who are going to move forward and buy a home with us or without us, and convince them that they would be better off using us to make all of the right decisions than trying to make all the decisions on their own. So the reason, and I just want to finish this one thought, Terry, and I'm so sorry for speaking over you, but we need to master virtual real estate so we can move the process forward, because it's going to move forward with us or without us.
Talk about what you mean by mastering virtual real estate. Are you talking about knowing where to get that data information? Talking about being able to show a home online through using Zoom? What do you mean by that?
So I'm talking specifically about the things that real estate agents need to be able to do, need to be able to know, to master. So let me pull something up here for you. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Oh, absolutely. Please do.
Perfect. Let me just pull this up, and I'm going to pull this document over. This is a document that we created here at Workman Success Systems. It's actually called Becoming a Master of Virtual Real Estate. And I'm just going to switch to page 3 real quickly, because it gives a list of things that you need to virtualize your services on. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so everybody can see it if they're watching the video. And so I'm just going to click on this link right here. It's going to take me to a document. And these are, I'll make it a little smaller so we can all see it together. And we can just walk through this real quickly if you want to. The listeners might find that to be very helpful.
Excellent.
These are the services that I think every agent in America, and anywhere as a matter of fact, should learn how to do virtually. So the first one is, how do you do a virtual buyer showing? And so you have to take the showing that you would do in the physical world. And in the physical world, Terry, would you start in the family room, or would you start by helping somebody understand what area of the city they're in, what schools they're in, how the neighborhood looks? I mean, what comes first, the family room or the outside of the house?
Well, you know, it's all about location and real estate.
And so the deal is that a lot of your agents, Terry, were starting out and they were doing their virtual showings by walking in the front door and showing a house, but a consumer doesn't care about the house until they know where it is and they know that it meets their needs. So we put together a specific process, and anybody can do this. So I get you online, I get you on a Zoom, and it's how do I start with that Google satellite map and show you where the area is and how it is in relation to other areas, show you where the schools, the town center, the shopping, all of that kind of stuff. Then we go in the neighborhood, and maybe we do a Google street map so we can actually show you what it looks like to walk outside of the front of the home, and then we go inside the home. and we give you a full tour of the home, and we either use a 3D tour or we use the photos just to go through and give you as much information as we possibly can. And I try to put you in the same situation as if you and I are together. And so then at the end, Terry, I'm going to ask you whether or not you like the home that we saw, and whether or not I need to leave it on the schedule as a keeper. Just like you would do if you were out showing homes in the real world, you would ask somebody if they wanted to keep that home on the list to consider for further, consideration before they, narrow down the list of the ones they want to buy. So that's the first thing. Any questions about that, Terry?
Not at all. I think that the question that might be in the mind of some of the agents is, well, how can you possibly do that virtually? And you just demonstrated the steps to do so. And some of the items on this list are kind of interesting. Like, I'm wondering how you do it in a virtual meeting. I mean, do you use like breakout rooms to have like the lender meeting? Is that all?
So here's what's interesting. I'm glad you picked that one out. It's second from the bottom on the left-hand column for those who can't find it. When we give a referral to a lender in the normal world, we give the lender's name, we give the lender's phone number, and that's it. And then we don't know, in most cases, we don't understand, where the person is in the process. Did they call the lender? Did they not? A virtual lender meeting is this. It can be something as simple as me having my cell phone, and I have a list of 3 or 4 preferred lenders. And while Terry, you and I are together, say you're my buyer prospect, instead of me giving you the name and number of my preferred lender, I get my preferred lender on FaceTime immediately. And you and I and the lender talk through it together. We had a virtual meeting via Zoom with a home buyer, husband and wife, newlyweds, the husband's mom and dad, who are prior clients of ours, the lender, the buyer's agent, and me, 5 people. But by the time we got finished, we had talked through the loan options, more down payment, less down payment, how much does spending a little bit more affect your payment on a monthly basis. We answered questions about FHA loans, about conventional loans, about mortgage insurance, about private mortgage. We answered questions about everything. And it was just an amazing process, and it helped convert things. So it's really, Terry, boils down to this. How do I do what I would do in the physical world as closely as possible in the virtual world? That's what it boils down to. And that's what we all need to focus on.
Well, that is an amazing opportunity for agents to actually see tactically what a virtual list of services are and what you need to master. So thank you very much for sharing that with us, Cleve. So you join us from Atlanta. You've got a radio show. You help lots and lots of people, both realtors, the consumers, and teams.
I try.
One of the most important things is right now is, it's a different normal. And we've got team members that are out there, and we want to manage them. One of the most articulate things you talked about earlier in a segment was mastering the head game, understanding that people are still listing and selling, and they're moving, and there are statistics that can prove that. And the most important point I think you made was talking about what it does to your mindset. Because if you have to prove to yourself, because it's real easy to say nobody's moving, nobody's showing houses, nobody wants to go in them.
Right.
Not true. So tell us a little bit more about that mindset as it goes to team member management.
So we have to help our jobs as team leaders is to paint a very clear picture of the future for our agents. And so if we leave agents alone, and if we leave team members alone, they're not bad people, but they hear enough on the news. I mean, if you turned on any of the major news channels, it looks like the world's coming to an end fairly quickly, which, by the way, when I drive down the street in Metro Atlanta, it looks exactly the same as it did. In fact, it's prettier now than it was 6 weeks ago because we're through the spring and everything is absolutely beautiful. And so we have to help team members see the opportunities that they might not see on their own. So one of the things that we recommend is that you as a leader, you have your finger on the pulse of your market. How many new properties are being listed every week? How many prices are being decreased every single week? How many homes are going pending or under contract, and how many homes are closing? I would say, Terry, that one of the most restrictive geographic areas in the country was Michigan. Certainly, New York would follow, would be exactly the same. So New York and Michigan. And way more than 0 houses are being listed and sold in those areas, even though business has been totally shut down. So I did some research the other day, and certainly there's not as many listings going into listing services in Michigan as there otherwise would be, but there's 32% of the same number of listings that would have been listed last year, which means somebody's doing some business. And so what we have to help our agents understand, and really anybody around us understand, is that the river of real estate continues to run. People who need to sell will figure out a way to do it. People who need to buy will figure out a way to do it. And if we feel some responsibility to help them, especially if we feel it's our responsibility to help them make the best decisions, we can't let them run off without us. So we have to figure out a way to help them. And in the virtual world is the best way to do it.
So as a team leader, what are you doing differently with now the whole remote thing where people are working independently from home?
It makes it better. It doesn't make it worse. It makes it better. And let me tell you why. So if you have everybody together, can we just talk about accountability from a lead flow standpoint? Would it be
Please.
okay?
Absolutely.
Because I think that's what everybody worries about, right? I got 100 leads and none of them are any good. I can't move them forward. So first of all, you have everybody together on a Zoom meeting or whatever your preferred platform is, everybody on video, everybody on audio, everybody knows how to share their screen and demonstrate what's going on. So this is the process we've been following, Terry, and it is amazing to watch what happens to the agents when you do this level. I'm not going to call it accountability. I'm going to call it when you create this level of awareness, okay? And so here's the way it works. Would you mind if you and I kind of played through like you were my agent and I was the team leader?
If I was that lucky, yes.
Well, come on, girl. You are hired immediately. We will rush your application through to get you on our team. So here's what we're going to do. So you and I are on a Zoom meeting. We're in front of all of our team members. And now it's your turn for us to talk about your lead awareness and accountability. So the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to pull up what's called a lead tracker. You are not me. You're going to share your screen. You're going to pull up the lead tracker, and you're going to talk about every lead or handoff that you were given last week. Were you able to meet with the person face-to-face, even if it was virtually? What are you doing to move forward? The ones you weren't able to meet with, what are we doing to try to move them forward? It's amazing to watch that process. Then, so let's say you got 10 leads last week. Now we're going to go over to your CRM, which could be RealVolve or Boomtown or Sync or whoever it is, and we're going to look and see if all 10 of those leads were entered into your CRM. And they're ready to go with follow-up plans, categorized correctly, the whole 9 yards.
When you say categorized correctly, why don't you explain what that means?
People use all different types of ways of categorizing leads. We teach what's called the ABCs of lead management. A lead that is categorized as an A would be the equivalent of a hot in most CRM system, which means they're ready to buy or sell immediately and you have an appointment with them. A B, which would be more of a nurture in a lot of CRM systems, would be somebody who's ready to buy or sell in the next 90 days, and you follow up with them twice a month during the week of the 1st and the 15th. Someone who is a C is someone who's ready to buy or sell in longer than 90 days. And what's interesting is, Terry, 16 years is longer than 90 days, which means anybody that's going to buy or sell longer than 90 days is a C, and we follow up with them once a month during the week of the 8th. So they go into the CRM and they get categorized correctly, and we launch an action plan for the follow-up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and does the follow-up just phone calls or is it multi-channeled?
It's everything. So the follow-up plans for us remind us to reach out with an activity, meaning it might be an email one time, it might be a text one time, it might be a phone call, it might be all three as part of the same one. The key, Terry, is to make sure that you are providing them something of value instead of just trying to sell them at home. So let me give you an example. If you came into my website 90 days ago and you were looking for a property at 1234 First Street, if I continue to follow up with you and ask you if you want to see the property at 1234 First Street, eventually you're going to think I'm crazy because you didn't want to see it the first time I've called. You certainly don't want to see it the sixth time I've called. So you can follow up either property specific or market specific. And so what happens is if you can't follow up on a specific property, then you must follow up on something to do with the market. So let me give you an example. And this sounds weird, but you came in 90 days ago on 1234 First Street. I followed up with you for a couple of weeks. I couldn't get you to go see the property. Now I've changed my follow-up in this general market. So right now, I want to tell you about the forbearance programs that are available through the CARES Act. And so I send you a text that says, hey, don't know if you or anybody you know needs to understand more about forbearance, but click on this and it'll take you to an article. Don't let anybody agree to a forbearance program until they read this. That is the kind of follow-up that we need to be making during today's market. That's what we need to do.
That makes you that celebrity authority. So what you're saying is when you're a team leader,
Yep.
helping people be aware of the process, the structure, and the habits that create the relationships. Because, you know, in the old days, people walked in. Nobody walks in anymore. And so you've got to have a system.
Unless they're lost. Or drunk.
Or they knock on your door at home. Yeah, right. So it's a different setup. And when we give people structure, especially as entrepreneurs, you and I both know this, you know, entrepreneurs are all about passion, but that doesn't pay. You've got to have some systems and structure underneath what you do every day that moves that needle forward. And like you said, when you really become accountable, makes sense.
You just said something that is so significant that I'll guarantee you very few people got. An entrepreneur's personality is not well suited to the discipline of the follow-up that needs to be done to be successful. In fact, it is exactly the opposite. So let me hit two more important pieces if I could. So first of all, we're doing meetings. We have everybody on Zoom. We're letting them share so we can see their lead flow. We can see their CRM. We can see how things are categorized, whether or not they're following up. So then we do what we call a double loop, and this is the key. First, we loop back 7 days before and we look at all the leads from last week and we just pick one that generally we know they have not converted and we get them to talk about that. We look it up in the CRM, we see what action plans are launched, we see when the person is visiting our website, and then we do that second loop and we go back 30 days before. So in one, and we'll do it all in like 7 or 8 minutes. In one session with you talking about your leads, we talk about everything from this week, one thing from the prior week, and one thing from 4 weeks back. And we start to create that awareness in how they're supposed to have a plan for everybody to move them forward. And then we give them a very specific definition of what is an up-to-date CRM. We can talk about that on a later call because I know we won't have too much time today, but we just try to help them understand how should they be benchmarking themselves? How should they measure themselves in their performance?
And as a strong leader, you can help them with that. So if then they have the belief factor that these things are convertible, because you hear all the time, as recently as yesterday, oh, all the leads are bad.
Yeah. So here's the deal. And I just have to close with this. We bought some artificial intelligence 3 years ago when it didn't work. And so I gave every single one of my agents a list of 100 people that were in their lead flow that were most likely to buy. Each one of those agents sold somewhere between 4 and 6 houses to people on that list. And I'm going to tell you, Terry, it was not because those people were more ready to buy. It was because those agents had a place to focus. And so as team leaders, it is our responsibility to show people what the future looks like. And so what I would tell you, Terry, is that if you got 100 leads, I expect you to meet with 15 of those face-to-face. And I expect you to sell 30% of the ones you meet with face-to-face, which means I expect you to sell 4 homes out of 100. Now, the truth is that's not the way it's going to work. You might sell 2 homes or you might sell 3 homes, but you're going to sell a lot more if I help you benchmark and set the right expectation, because you're going to continue to dig and dig and dig and dig until you make it work. That's what I mean by saying you have to project out for somebody the future.
Well, where did you get that 15? I mean, where did that come from? Is it just from statistically showing what's happening?
So our face-to-face, our lead flow to handoff ratio for our team is always between 12 and 15%, which means if 100 leads flow in, we give 12 to 15 to agents to work. And then they'll meet with about 85% of those face-to-face, and they'll sell 18 to 20%. We set the benchmark at 30% because we need to give them something to shoot for that's a little higher than reality.
And that's because you've been tracking every lead. So I think the one thing as a broker owner or a manager, team leader has to hear is that when you start getting very granular with each lead, what it costs, the time to convert it, it really gives you a very clear picture of your investment and your return on that investment. And as a team leader, and like you said, most entrepreneurs definitely have the high I without the detail. And when you offer a system to
Yes.
measure, even if they hand it off to someone who loves that kind of stuff,
Yes.
we get real measurement. Like we say, we want to measure, right? What we expect. And so
Yep.
there you go. You've just given us a great framework.
And let me give you two things to close on. Number one, they will never, let me repeat, never, 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 never get it all right. It's not humanly possible to get it all right. And number two, you will always, 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 always have to follow up. So just understand those two things as a business leader. They're never going to get it exactly right, and I'm always going to have to follow up. So what you get these entrepreneurs do is they want to set this business that runs on its own. If you let a business run on its own, it's going to produce the results that the average person can get. You as an entrepreneur are not, you won't accept average. So if you want the business to function the way you want it to, you have to stay involved. Understand they'll never quite get it, and you'll always have to follow up. And if you'll just accept those things today, you'll be much better off, and you'll probably be a bit richer if you realize those things as well.
Yeah, but one of the things that we've talked about is the authenticity of follow-up. A lot of times agents will say, well, I really don't know what to say. I mean, how many times can I ask them how their family is or if they want to see that house again? Really, this is a time where people need to feel trusted, and they need to trust, they need to feel safe.
Yes.
And it has to be relevant, because
Yep.
if they smell commission breath, it's just not authentic. How do you help people understand the help piece here?
So thank you very much, and I appreciate you having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Early in this process, I would get people who I regularly buy something from. So for example, somebody who's selling me airtime for commercials, and they're following up and they're reaching out and they're saying, hey, Cleve, and I can picture this music playing in the background, little violins playing. I mean, hey, Cleve, I wanted to reach out, let you know how much I'm thinking about you, how much I care about you. And man, just let me know if there's anything I can do. And so if I thought to myself, BS, I think you would know what I mean when I say I'm thinking BS. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking this person is following up with me to make sure that I don't die so I can keep giving them money after the coronavirus is over. And it's terrible to say, but Terry, that is the way I felt. And so what dawned on me was that we make follow-up calls hoping the result will be they'll think about us when they're ready to buy after the crisis or whenever it's time. But what's happening is we're reminding them that we would like 2.5% to 3% of whatever the sales price is of the house they're looking to buy. And so the effect of these follow-up calls was exactly the opposite of what we wanted it to be. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to make these calls, I have to get a specific result about it. And this is weird. So if I'm going to call Terry Murphy and have a follow-up call with her, I have to twist her arm until she lets me help her with something, because then and only then will she understand that I truly wanted to help her. So the issue was, like, what should I help her with? I mean, do you want me to cook Italian food for you? I don't think that's going to work well. I think you're a lot better at it than I am. And so what I did is I put together, and if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen. We put together a little list of the different types of help that you can provide. Let me pull this over on top of another document we were using earlier. And so these are the list of services and help you can provide when you make an outreach call. And so let's just pick a couple, for example. Would it be okay if we discuss refinancing and help them make decisions?
Excellent choice.
So in today's world, if you have a mortgage payment that is $2,000 a month, and you have the ability to make that mortgage payment $1,750 a month because you can save on your interest rate, then I think that is providing somebody with some very good help in a time when people need to cut their costs. The problem is people don't know how to make a decision on whether or not that makes sense. And so what we've done is we've basically taught our agents to help a person understand how much money they're saving and how much money it's costing them to save it. So let's just work through an example. Let's say that you are going to do a refinance and it would cost you $3,000 and you would save $2,000 over the next 24 months. So we teach everybody that if you can save the money fully that it costs you to refinance in 24 months, then it makes sense to do that. And in your case, you would save $2,000 in your monthly payment, but it would cost you $3,000 to do it. So we would say that that doesn't pass the smell test when it comes to refinancing. And so a person needs to be, in this particular case, if they were saving $2,000, then they could only invest $2,000 in the closing cost. Or if the closing costs were $3,000, then the payment savings would need to be enough to offset that $3,000 over a 24-month period. We are finding huge response from people when we say, just wanted to mention that if your interest rate is 4 or higher, you probably should be looking at refinancing. We don't offer mortgages since I'm a real estate broker and not a loan officer, but I can help you make the best decisions if you're interested. And people have had some of the most meaningful conversations with people when they reach out and really try to connect with them in ways to help.
And that's another great opportunity to have a really good working, mutually respectful relationship with your lender, because the realtor shouldn't be the lender, and the lender can be a great resource for those people. Imagine saving some extra money, especially with interest rates where they are now.
So, but I want to just mention one thing. So most real estate agents are too afraid to have meaningful discussions about mortgages. You are so right. They shouldn't quote rates. They shouldn't try to do everything. But a real estate agent in today's world needs to be able to be that third-party advisor that helps the buyer make the best decisions. And Terry, I'm going to be honest with you, most of the people that I talk to in real estate, they run from any mortgage-related questions. Somebody asks them, hey, should I make more down payment or less down payment, or should I get an FHA or should I get a conventional? And real estate agents need to know the answers to these questions. They need to read, they need to research. Now, they don't need to give the answer as a mortgage expert. They need to give an answer because they're an outside third party whose job is to make sure they know everything they need to know before they make the biggest financial decisions of their lives.
And wouldn't it make sense to do a Zoom call and bring that lender in to answer the question in that moment at the height of their interest and of their need?
Yeah, and it's so interesting. So most people have a hard time pushing their clients to use their preferred lender. And it's because they feel a little bit guilty. But if your lender is going to give them a good rate, there's no reason to feel guilty. So here's what I recommend people say. Hey, I've got my lender on. His name is John. And John gives the information and we talk about mortgages. And I tell the clients this. I say, look, you might as well go ahead and make full application with John. And I know you might not want to feel stuck with him because, somebody else might be able to give you a better rate. Well, you don't have to worry because, see, John already knows the way I think. So as soon as we find your house, I am going to shop around in our local market for a better rate than what John would give you. And if we can find it, it's not a problem because we're going to call John together and we're going to say, here's what we can get from somebody else. Can you meet it or can you beat it? The reality is, and I'm not telling anybody anything they don't already know, they all get their money from the same place, unless they're credit union or somebody that's portfolioing, easy for me to say, the loan. And so help your client understand that you're going to make sure they get the best deal anyway. And somebody said to me, well, how can you say that? I said, I can say it because it's true. And the lender knows that I'm going to help the buyer search for the best rates. And the lender is most appreciative that if we can find a better rate, I'm telling the client to go back and ask the first lender to match it, which is really all they want anyway, because almost always they can.
Exactly. Now, you also did some information about outreach and what to say when you follow up on health services. You
Yes.
talked about unemployment rates and how it was hyperlocal in your area.
So it's very interesting. So we've been monitoring we don't call it the unemployment rate. We call it the employment rate.
Okay.
And so this data is a week old, but at the beginning of this year, 9.5 out of 10 people who wanted a job had a job. 2 weeks ago, 8.2 out of 10 people who wanted a job had a job. And so, Terry, there were a bunch of prospects. We used some artificial intelligence to follow up with people in our database who might be thinking of selling. And these are people who I know. I've already sold houses for them or helped them buy something in the past. But there were 6 or 7 people, they would not respond to me for any reason because I was just following up, hey, what's going on? But I changed my tune a week ago and I sent them a text message and I said, hey, I'm tired of people spreading all negative news. I want to spread some good news. I did some research and 8.2 people out of every 10 people who want a job have a job. Every single person, Terry, who had not responded to me before responded, all of them. because I was just giving them some information. I was just giving them a service. There was no obligation, no expected reciprocity, no nothing. I was just trying to help them. And it made all the difference in the world, all the difference in the world.
Well, it also points to you as being, again, the celebrity authority. You understand you're a trusted resource. What's going on? You're paying attention. And it dispels commission breath. I hate to say it that way. But on this list, you've got a number of things: providing a copy of closing paperwork for tax returns. I mean, we've been doing that forever, but this is something somebody who's not been in the business 20 years doesn't know. So
exactly right.
Really a great idea. So what would you go ahead and tell broker owners, broker managers, team leaders, and agents today on how to extend and get really effective with help services?
So today, at least for the next couple of months, I'd focus almost fully on any of the forbearance programs that are offered by the government. So the reality is that the forbearance options that are being offered today, Terry, they don't make any sense. Two of them don't make any sense at all. So when you call your servicer for your Fannie or Freddie back loan, they're going to offer you one of three options. One says, we're going to let you miss the payments for the next 90 days, but on the 91st day, all of the payments are due.
Yikes.
The second option is, we're going to reduce your payments in half. So your payment was $2,000, we're going to make it $1,000. We'll do that for 3 months. And then we're going to take that $3,000, 1,000 times 3, and we're going to add it to the $2,000 that you couldn't pay before. We're going to add the amount you're in arrears, and you're going to pay it back in the next 12 months. Well, see, that's a problem. If you don't have the money to make your payments, you probably don't have, starting the 4th or 5th month, all of the payments you should have made plus 1/12 of what you missed. So the third option, Terry, is we're going to take those payments. We're going to forgive those payments at this point. We're going to excuse those payments. We're going to skip those payments. Forgive is not the right word. And we're going to add those payments to the end of your loan. That's what most people think they're getting, but that's not what they're being offered. And so if you do some research, and we'll have, by the way, a sheet that will outline all the forbearance options. We'll have one through Workman ready in the next few days that we're happy to share. But I think we can educate people. 7 million homeowners have applied for forbearance. 7 million. I read that in Forbes magazine or something the other day. Amazing. 7 million people, 7 million homeowners.
So there you go. So we'll check back with you to get a copy of that. And Cleve, I want to thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Real ways to outreach with real strong authenticity and relevant information to help people build that relationship and show them that we're here to help, and really here to help.
We are.
Tell us how to reach you and to get you for speaking, training, consultations.
Oh, thank you very much. So if you love what you listen to, you can listen to my podcast. You can go to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or iTunes and just search for Cleve Gaddis. That's Cleve, short for Cleveland. Cleve Gaddis, Gaddis. Or if you want to talk to me about speaking or market analysis or pretty much anything consulting, you can reach out to me at cleve@workmansuccesssystems.com. cleve@workmansuccesssystems.com. There is no question too big or too small. I am happy to help in any way I can.
And he is. And I just want to thank you again for joining us today, Cleve, and sharing your incredible vision on what we can do going forward in this turbulent time. I'm Terry Murphy for Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, and in the Men's Room. Thanks for joining us. Join us again for another segment coming up on Realty Times.